Okay, it's a little about 5 minutes early here. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do this evening. And so this evening I want to go over creating a project and adding files. I've got lots of window shots here about what you should see. And then get down here, we're going to add forms to the project. So this is about how many pages? A bunch of pages. So if you don't, we're not going to print it all out. Anyway, I'm going to go over this, and we're going to talk about creating a project and creating empty forms to the project, because it's awfully easy in this thing just to end up with a mess. And I've started over about 15 times. Deleted it all and started over. And so I finally decided I'm going to start writing down what I'm doing, kind of like, when you're disarming a bomb. That's what they told me they used to do. They'd sit there and record what they did, so the next guy that got blown up, after he got blown up, the next guy would know what not to do on the next one. So something like that. So I sat down and made a kind of a map of a way to go through it. And you don't have to name yours what I'm going to name mine, but I'm going to take us through creating a Visual Basic project, and been asked if you can write in C#, and I would have no problem with writing in C#. Okay, I got to learn C# sooner or later, and might as well learn it now. Nothing like having to learn it to read something. Make me go learn it. Darn it. So anyway, this document that I'm going to use here in about 3 or 4 minutes is attached to an announcement. So if you'd go ahead and get that. I'm going to pause the recording. Zoom recording and checking. I am recording. Okay, good. Today is Happy Halloween, October 31st, 2018. The time is 6 p.m. It is at wet, rainy Halloween at Frisco, Texas, Collin College. This is Stephen Smith speaking. Tonight we're going to talk about our project. We're working in Visual Studio, among other things, and I'm going to talk about creating a project in Visual Studio, how to do it. So if you follow these steps, you will end up with an empty project that will work. So start Visual Studio. I said you likely knew that. Create a project. To create a project, you'll create an application project. And it comes with everything you will need. So we open 2017. From the top menu bar, choose File, New, Project. So I'm going to go there, and I'm going to close this solution. Okay, from this guy right here, I usually close the start page. I don't know why I always do that. File, New, Project. From the next window, we're going to choose from Visual Basic, we're going to choose a Windows Forms app. Now, if you do not have a Windows Forms app, that comes with one of the packages we should have installed, and that means that the page tells you what to do, and choose, then in the middle page, choose Windows Forms app, and it says name the file Hello World. I don't care. Here's the important one. If you don't see that project template, this tells you what to do. Okay, cancel out, and essentially you're going to start the installer. So you can just go over to your your charms and start the installer from there, or you can do it like this. You can go to the tools, get tools and features, which will launch the installer, and then basically you're going to install this guy, the .NET Desktop Development, and this is the one that you have to have, by the way, for C# also, if you're using Visual Studio. I don't know what F# is. What is it? Is it a C derivative? Never looked at it either. C# I know is fairly, I guess. And when you get there, this should be what you see. Okay, So when you're creating your project, you should, the Windows Forms app, when you double click this, and we should double click it, and we have a Windows form, and it'll look something like this. And so we have our Windows app. It always names it Windows App 1. Notice it gives us an empty form named, strangely enough, Form 1. I keep wanting to select it there. But it looks like this. So if we right-click the default name, if we right-click this name, Windows App 1, and then we get a drop-down menu, we choose Rename, and I'll name mine RPS APP. You may name it, you don't have to name yours like mine. Okay, enough of that. Your new application comes with one form, named Form 1. Right-click that and name it FRM Master. So I believe I was over here doing that. Double-click. I'll go to View and go to look at my Solution Explorer. Oh yeah, there they are over there. Okay, notice that there's the Windows App 1. That's the one I want to rename it. So I'm going to pull down here to rename, and I'm going to rename it. What did I name it? RPS APP, I think, or something like that. I think I had a capital R. Okay. Not a big deal. If you want to change yours, that's fine. Then the other thing I was going to do is rename this Form 1. I don't like Form 1 and Form 2 and Form 3. I'm going to give them meaningful names. So in order to rename a form, I have to right-click it and go to Rename, and I'm going to name this one FRM to indicate it's a Form Master. And if you don't have some kind of a naming convention where you can look at the name and tell what it is, you will get lost in this namespace. So, for example, my forms all begin with FRM. My buttons all begin with BTN. I have the similar naming convention of my fields and my tables. Something that makes sense to me. Right? So you're the one that's going to have to navigate through it for the most part. Now, notice that when I click out of that, it'll ask me, say, you're renaming the file. What would you like to perform? In other words, all the references to it. There aren't any references to it. It doesn't really matter what you say. Just go ahead and say yes. It'll be fine. Now, notice some things about it. Notice that this name up here at the top of it did not change. It's still saying Form 1. Why? That's just a text label. That's not the name of the form. The name of the form, see the text, this is the text, T-E-X-T, is Form 1, and I can set that to anything I want it to be. So for example, I could set that to be master form. It's okay to have spaces in that. And now when I accept that, notice that it did change up there. The name, that's the text. Where's the name? The name is down here. The name is FRM Master. That's really the most important piece of it. The text isn't much of anything. The text, actually, you can change the text at runtime and make the window appear as a different window. I'm going to leave this one set as named as FRM Master, and I have changed his. There is Mary. There is a form. Okay. Anyway, that's what I'm talking about now is the stuff on that form, and we have created the project. Talked about you might have to install something else, whether it's installed or not. To be able to use it. So anyway, basically, I just have an empty form. So I have a project. This is the project it gave me. And it gave me one form in it, and all I did was rename that form. Okay. Next step, if we go over to our Word, comes with one form, so we've changed its name. And now we're ready to insert another form. Actually, I'm going to insert about 3 forms. Please notice that these graphics were snapped at a different time, so the names might be inconsistent across this line. I'm going to right-click the project. Mine is, here it's named PRJ RPS or something like that. Well, I'm going to right-click it. Right-click, add. Add what? Add a new item. Add what? Windows form. Not surprisingly named Form 1 again. Can't seem to get away from that. While I'm here, I might as well go ahead and right-click it. Rename it. I'm going to name this one Insert Player. And let's see. I'll say yes to this dialog box that pops up. Doesn't really matter. And let's see, the text in this one, I'll change its text, strangely enough, to insert space player. And so on. It is good practice whenever you're dealing with an environment like this and you make a change to a field, click out of that field on the one above it or the one below it before you move on. It is just a good practice to get into. Some will let you get away without it, and some, if you leave that form without ever leaving the field, it won't save that thing in that piece of your form. So that's kind of what sets it. Okay. Close both of these guys. Yes, I want to save him. And form master, yes, I'd save him. Now I have 2 of them. Not what that is. What am I going to do now? I'm going to right click, add, new item, Windows form, form 1 again, and I'm going to rename him. What is this one going to be? Create game. Yes, I'm going to show you that in just a minute. And so on. I'm going to have another one. I'm going to create 4 forms, I think. I think 4 forms will be plenty. If you want to get really cute, you can try to break the play round into 2 forms. Do it with 1 form first, because that's going to turn into a monster. Okay? So I'm not telling you have to do that. Let's see if we can get it running. Simplicity is good while you're getting it running. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is get this down to simple. So I'm going to end up with 4 forms. 1 named master. Now, if I go to the project, see yes. I go to the little project thingy, and let's see, I think it's this, yeah, double click my project, which I never renamed. Notice that I have one of these guys here that's named startup form. Okay, this is one that you'll change periodically. It's going to end up being the master form. That's the menu that drives everything. But while I'm working on others, I'm just going to run that 1 form. So if I'm working on the insert player, I'm going to set it to be insert player. Then when I say start, it's going to run that form. And then I can test it, and it'll blow up, and I test it again, and it blows up again, and until I get it troubleshot. And then I'll go to the next one and the next one, and then finally at the end, I'll set it to the master. No, I don't want to save anything. Okay, delete this guy. Oh well. I'll delete him later. He kind of holds stuff open for a long time there. Okay, let's start. I started with the create insert with the insert player. So mine is named FRM insert player. And I started thinking about, what does it have to do? Well, it has to take 3 fields from the user and calls a procedure over in the database. Now, the thing I noticed that I did I recycled a lot of code from this guy. So this same code is practically the code that's in that button that says create player, insert player button, is reused in every other form. Every place I hit the database, practically, I'm reusing that code. Because if it makes the connection once, it'll make the connection again. If it isn't broken, don't put all your chickens in one basket. Don't mix your metaphors. Don't reinvent the wheel. Okay? And there's no reason for it. So I took what works. Now, these guys are simply text fields. They have names, unique names. Remember their names. Name them something that makes sense to you. You don't have to name them what I named them. Doesn't matter what I named them. Well, I'll talk about what I named them. What is his name? I think it's down toward the bottom. Name is TXT PID, player ID. I began it with the word TXT. And I see here I'm using an underscore. I didn't always use underscores. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I try to be consistent, but because I had so many, I bet I've written this project 15 times in order to get it down here, where the hardest part was figuring out how to do that project and get the forms inserted into it, get that blank format set up. Once I got that set up, now I'm fairly well cooking. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3 fields, text fields. I have a label. Label's name is LBL output. That's where I'm going to tell you what's going on. And where the rubber meets the road is in the insert player button. So let's go look at that. There's the public class. This is the form. And they will all have this line right here, import system.data.sql client. All of them. So in C, that would be like pound include stdio, or pound include iostream.h or iostream. Right, that's got to be there for everything we're doing. So that's kind of the pound include everything. This guy, this system.data.sql client will be the same in C#, in C, and Visual Basic. I think it'll be exactly that, won't it? System.data.sql client. So anything that's in there is just, it's part of that's your programming interface. I haven't read it. I haven't gone through it, but I've been studying about what all is in it. Most of this stuff is in it. If I take it out, we're going to get red lines all over this thing. Try commenting it out and see how many red lines you get. Bet you get 20 or 30. Okay, so the button insert player begins right here. Oops, I'm sorry. I forgot to turn on that other monitor. I know Donna likes to watch on her screen. I'll bring it up over here for my left-handed people. Okay, I have a lot of comments in here. One thing that you can do, you can close this guy down. You can always put him back. You can go to View, Solution Explorer, and he'll come back. If your toolbar is over here, you can say View. If you're using the toolbar, toolbox, excuse me, and you want to close it, just close it. You can always get it back easily. And so I talk here about what a well-written form is going to do. There was a question about the form wasn't writing to the errata table. The form can't see the errata table. The form can't write to the errata table. The form is the public user. Public user is not allowed to even know about the errata table. What writes to the errata table? Only the triggers. Okay. The procedures don't write to the errata table. If something gets through the procedure and gets to the actual insert down at the bottom of the procedure, if it gets there and still has an error in it, that's an error. It's not a errata table until it gets there. But a well-written form will always check all of the data it can. So if I can check stuff without making the connection, that's good. And how you check it is your business. That's one of the things I'm kind of looking for here. How do you check it? That's something you can add that's just simple coding. It's not a big deal, but let's talk about what we have to have for this. We have to have the connection string, okay? The connection string looks like that. So just go ahead and pretty much copy that. Put in, I think you'll probably make your guy public user, I would, and his password, or her password, whichever. Okay. It has to be the one that's in the database, not the one that I've got. One that's in your database for that person. This is what lets them connect. Now, we could have typed this in down here, but I think it's messy. Next, we create the connection. We pass the connection string to it. So this is the connection that is based on this connection string. That has to happen. It'll happen that way all the time. Every one of mine, every time I make a connection, it does that. Okay, the next one, we have to have the SQL. So this is the SQL that this form is going to run. It's typically fairly small. I don't like having a whole big glob of SQL in the form getting executed by the form. I like for it all to be set up as a procedure or as a view or as a function. He's going to run this insert player. Okay, the next one is going to set up this command. Line 42. It's going to be the same everywhere. Line 44 will be, now line 45 changes a little bit depending on whether it is a stored procedure or whether it is SQL text that's being executed. Okay. So I call your attention to that when it's a little bit different. So line 44 might, or 45 might change a little bit. And then the SQL command text, well, that's what we set up right up here. DBO, RPS insert player. That's SQL. It's a string. So we got the connect string and we got our SQL string. And I do them in the same order every time. Right? So I do this, how many times do I make a connection? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I do 5 or 6 connections and they're all the same. Set up the input parameters. These change depending on the parameters, how many parameters you have. If you have more or fewer, you might have fewer than 3 or more than 3. This is the name it is over in the database, and this is where it comes from in the form. txt_pid.text. My favorite one is to forget to put that .txt on the end of it and then wonder why it isn't working. Huh? It's not working. I'm getting a compiler error. Oh, I hate it when that happens. If you don't put .txt on the end of it, text on the end of it, it won't work because it'll be trying to pass the button. And I suppose that might make sense under some conditions, but it doesn't here because I'm trying to pass an SQL command. I want to take the text that's in that box, and that's going to be the player ID. Next one's going to be the name, and the next one's going to be the password. I usually keep them in order, some kind of semblance of order. Maybe the order on the form, maybe the order in which they're expected. I don't know. You don't have to do that because they're passed by name. Next two lines demonstrate the syntax of an output parameter. All of your procedures have output parameters. Okay? So it's two lines that you have to have there. I named mine error level, ERRORLVL, in all of my procedures. So those two lines aren't ever going to change. And now I'm ready to do it. So I've got my connection string. I've got my string that I'm going to execute. I've got the parameters all set up, the connection all set up. You have to do this, these guys. Okay, down to line 51 now. I'm going to pause there for a minute and let that. The system, your system will tell you from time to time, it will prompt you and say, what does it say? Oh, right here. This initialization can be simplified. If you want to look at that, it shows you a way to simplify it. It shows you a way to write the code that is shorter than that, but in my opinion, this is more clear. And that's what I'm going for here, is not less typing, but I want it to be clear what's happening. You say something like with MySQL connection, and then you chop off the front end of it, essentially. Okay, let's do it. A little bit different in the SQL exception. EX is an SQL exception. Okay, so this is, what do I do? Open the connection. Execute the query. That's it. Close the connection. If something happens, I report it in the label. It pretty much is going to happen there. So you're going to have an error when you try to open the connection. If you get an error when you try to execute the query, it is most likely because of a permission in the database. Go over to your database, take that executable SQL line, set it up, and as public user, can you execute it and pass it 4 parameters? And does it work? 9 times out of 10, you'll find it, if it's failing because of a database permission. I had one just a few minutes ago that I was pulling my hair out over trying to figure out why. It was working on everything else. Well, they don't quit working on one. If the same code works one place, it'll work someplace else. This code will work. You'll have to tweak it a little bit. But you basically don't start slashing at it, is what I'm trying to say. You know, it's a fairly concise piece of code that will make a connection to the database, send some stuff to it. At this point, you may change this however you like to have it. I use an array of 5 strings. No, excuse me, an array of 6 strings. You know, it's really weird because some arrays start at 0 and go up to n-1, and some arrays start at 1 and go up to n. And then you have Visual Basic. It starts at 0 and goes to n. So when you say dimension an array of 5 strings, you get 6. Oh well. You can't get too upset about stuff like that. So I'm gonna double check. I'm still recording. Good. The first one, so let's see, error level comes back. And right here, error level is a byte. A byte is VB terminology for a tiny int in database. So when this tiny int comes back, I grab him right here and I put him into this variable called FV. FV means form variable. It's a local variable in the form. Goes away when the form goes. So it's just like having a variable in your program in C or whatever. And I say, give him that value. So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Well, if he's 0, everything's fine. But if he's anything else, if he's 1, 2, 3, or 4, that failed for a reason. That failed because it was caught at the procedure level. You know, there's nothing I can really do to stop you from putting garbage into the form. I try to catch it in the form all I can, but people are going to get through the form. Forms out there are sitting out there exposed on a web server. That web server is going to be the first casualty of war. They get knocked over every day. So you just assume that that guy's toast. You do the best you can, but I can't keep my attackers from throwing garbage into those procedures. Now, if I'm getting a whole lot of static traffic on it, I might want to do something about it. So I'm going to kind of watch that errata log. Well, I'm going to kind of watch what's going on it. I don't want to write the errata log every time that somebody puts in a duplicate name. Two people have no way of telling, you know, can I use that name again without it hitting the database and bouncing? That's not an error. As far as as far as a null name or something like that, I can check that in the form level. Go ahead, please.
There are two groups of error messages. Error messages that you declared in Visual Basic and error messages that you declared in SSMS. Can the error messages that you declared in SSMS show up in the forms?
That's a good question. No, I don't believe they will. Now, I don't think I have any error messages in my SSMS.
When we were doing the first part of the project,
okay.
Error message.
Right. There's an error message included in an exception. Right. Just my procedures. When my procedure detects a null name, I don't send you an error message. I just send you back an error code. I let you make of that what you want. Now, if you hit if you actually throw an exception, but I don't throw an exception except in triggers. So my trigger is what throws that database error, and that comes back with an error message. And yes, you would see that through the form.
Oh, is that what that
error? Error level 5. If you get error level 5, you should also see a low-level error from the database. Error level 5 is going to write the errata table.
So the value that we established in
yes. Those return values that we established in our procedures. Yes, SSMS is just our visual interface to database, but we've established that in our procedures. So we said 0 from insert player. I said in mine 0 means everything's cool. 1 means a empty player ID. 2 means an empty name. 3 means an empty password. 4 means a duplicate player ID. Now I have no way I can check that duplicate player ID at the form level because I don't have the players there. The other three I can check at the form level. But if I hit the database and I bounce off of the procedure, okay, I just got an error. That's just an error that's passed back, and it's all handled right here. So it comes back as a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's all handled here. All it did is hit that procedure, bounce back with a 4. Now, if I hit the procedure and I get through all of those guys, and I get to the part of it that says, okay, so let's see, what is this? Okay, insert player. So I check to see if he's an error level 1. I set error level 1, and I'm done. I don't print an error message. 2, 3, 4, whatever. Now, when I get here, so I always check my check the easy ones first. Now this one is a little harder because I have to go to the database to see if that one exists. 4, okay, that's still nothing. But if I pass through all of these and I get here, now I've penetrated the that layer of defense. Now I'm in the actual insert statement. I'm inserting, and now the trigger comes in. If it hits that trigger, it gets written to errata.
I made a mistake. I was actually remembering the original thing that I wrote for purposes of the change that you requested.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. I mean, for all the arrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's working fine, so I don't want to change it.
Well, you know, it is an evolution thing, and the thing of it is that you have so many things, and that's I told you at the beginning. The programming isn't that hard. There are so many details that have to, but the SQL, there's no SQL here. Well, all of 1309 is all of SQL. Most of it's in 1309. 99% of SQL is in 1309. So this isn't advanced SQL. You've had all the SQL you're going to get. Okay, so let's see. We were over here. And then so I put label output.txt gets error message using the error level as an that's a fairly slick little way of doing that. But you can probably do better. You could use if then else logic. You could use a case switch. I'm quite sure that Visual Basic has a case switch. I just don't know how to do it. I don't think in terms of case switch. Do you know what I'm talking about? Case. No. Case. The case of the error level. So the error level. Case 0. Write this. Case 1. Write this. Case 2. Write that. Case 4. Write this. And else. Write. Panic. I don't think that way. It's about the same thing that I've got. Actually, a case switch is just a ladder of ifs. You can do it either way. It doesn't really matter. Here's where we finally provide good feedback to the user. So we've never worried about, in the past 2 semesters, you know, all of 1309 and up to here, we haven't ever fooled with talking to the user. We don't like users. Nice. Okay, so now we're talking about, we're going to provide them good feedback. But, you know, how much do I worry about it? Oh, about that much. Right? And there's no, all the connections been made. Everything has happened. We just tell them what happened. I knock the text out of there. I'm going to come to this back button in a minute. This is some other stuff that I was playing around with where it wouldn't let you submit until it was a well-designed form stops the user from doing anything wrong. But it's not particularly a security matter. So I was just playing around with some stuff here. When the mouse leaves, another word for that is lost focus. That would be called lost focus in a lot of languages. And basically, I try not to enable the insert button until everything's cool. And I decided it was too much trouble. I wanted to go mess with something else. So I just commented it out. This one I'm going to talk about. But basically everything is in that button. Okay. And you're going to see this code from here down. Well, the parameters will be a little bit different. This query will be a little bit different here. And there'll be some minor differences, but they're basically going to be the same thing. Sure. Mm-hmm. You can, there's validation you can do, and basically I'm talking about getting one that works, and then, yeah. Sure, build on this. Okay, let's go look at the next one. Next one is create game. In my create game, I have 2 combo boxes is the key to it. Combo boxes populate. So the first combo box, the one on the left, I start with the one on the left. I guess I'm calling that player 1. So I populate the one on the left and then populate the one on the right by what is selected in the one on the left. So the one on the left drives it. And so when it starts, when the form loads, I think this is a button I was writing. It is the same thing. Nothing. Okay, the first form that we've got here is the create game, when it loads, when the form loads. So as soon as he pops up, we're gonna populate that combo box. What do I have? Well, I even copied the comments. The connection string is exactly the same. The connection is exactly the same. The SQL is logically exactly the same, except it has a little bit of a different code. It is SQL code. What is our public RPS players? That is a view. Okay.
When I toyed with this, I couldn't get select P_ID to work. I could only put an asterisk there. Is it because?
Asterisk.
Yeah.
Go look at your view.
Pass the PID to another name?
Yeah. Go look at your view and see if, because that's a problem that's in the view. Go look at the view. If you have if the view says select P_ID as,
It does, yes.
then you're going to have to use that name here.
The
Or
as name?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's what I did wrong. I thought about that afterwards. Like, why can I not get that to work?
Yeah.
If I put an asterisk there, it'll work.
An asterisk,
Right there where PID is.
a star between them.
Select everything.
Oh. Yeah, well, you only have one, there's only one field in that table. Yeah, if you said select and you put its name there, you put the name of your alias there, and if your alias has a space in it, you put, try it, it'll work. What I did, I think I had an alias there and it was giving me trouble too, and I just went and took the alias out and just left a PID. Yeah, this has to run. So I have to be able to take this guy. If I want to test him, copy him, go over to my database, go to my public user. There he is right there. So I'm public user. This has to work. If that doesn't work, you tried that and it didn't work, or did work?
It did not work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not your form's fault.
No, I know. It's because of my column header.
That's exactly right. Command is the same. We set up the parameters pretty much the same way. Let's see, line 29 has a difference. I'm calling your attention that that is different than the other one. Instead of a stored procedure, this is we're executing a piece of text. We have something different here. We have an adapter, and I'm not an adapter. I've been Googling it and trying to read about it and trying to come up with a good, simple solution. I don't have a simple solution, but it provides the communication between the data set and the SQL database. So it's used in combination with the data set object. It's part of that stuff that is included in the in our import file. And so what it is defined there. How it works is defined there. Basically, this is one way to do it. We have to create a new one, and then we put the SQL command into it. So it adapts the SQL command to this combo box. The data set works. Now we're getting the data set. Notice that it all kind of comes together there. So I've got the adapter, which has in it the SQL command, and then the data set, which is the thing that's getting filled. It all happens right there. So I've got this try-catch block down to as small of a piece as I can get it. Open the connection, fill the data set, close the connection. This one I chose to use a message box instead of the label. You may use either one. You may use message boxes as you please. You may report the outcome with message boxes. That's how you do one. Lots of different stuff you can do. And then the combo box first player. I'm not sure what all this stuff is. I think that the PID and the player ID, the PID is where the value comes from, and the player ID, I think, is going to be a label on on a column somehow, but I haven't figured it all out. I think I could live without this one. I think if I took this one off, it would work. I don't think I need that. I don't think I'm using it. We'll try it in a minute. Okay. And so basically, just go ahead and start it. We'll find out. Okay, I got we'll create a new game. Now let's see, I got Donald Trump is in a game with Vixen. Seems to be working. I think that last one is just a label on the column. I don't see what changed when I took it out. Okay. Back. Quit. Okay. Next one is exactly the same. This is the combo box, first player, when the selected value has changed. So the first player gets populated. When you say load, the first player is populated and something is selected. As soon as that something is selected, the second player populates based on that. Okay. If you change the first player, the second player automatically repopulates because this guy fires. Now they are exactly the same. One is practically a copy of the other. You could copy and paste, and the only difference is the select string. Now, what is possible opponents? I go, what? Oh, I'm sorry. It handles, that's the event that it handles. The combo first player selected value changed. I don't know, that always runs off and it won't even let you break it to the next line. Visual Basic is a real bear to try to format. Okay, what is possible opponents? It is functions. Okay. If these things show up in red, it's probably because you haven't, if you go up here and execute that guy, usually they'll go away. And if they don't go away, you just right click one of them and you go down to say IntelliSense enabled, and then they'll all go away. I don't know why it does that sometimes. It just does it. Basically, this is the possible opponents. It is a parameter. And what exactly is a function that returns a table? This is essentially a parameterized view. It's a view that acts with a parameter. So I feed it, I tell it what I want to see, and it shows me that. Just a plain view is simply an SQL statement. But when it's a function returning a table, that's basically I'm passing it a parameter and I say I only want to see certain ones. So I want to see the ones that are possibly an opponent. So I have select PID from RPS players, where it's not me. So if P is Stephen, I don't want to see Stephen. And PID is not in. Well, select everybody that PID is not in. This select everybody that he already has a game with, and as player 1, union, select everybody that he or she already has a game with as player 2. Now you can, if you think about that a little while, it's not hard. Basically, I want to select everybody that this player could everybody that's in the game, in the players table, that it would be possible for me to establish a game. Just SQL. There's several ways to do that. Okay. Well, I want to limit what I show anybody, so I have to show some things, but I want to keep it as tight as I can, right? I don't want to show anything, give any information away that I don't have to. Basically, it's just a function. So that's the only one. That's just and instead of running this. The last one selected everything from a view. This one just selects certain ones. And basically we do the commands the same. The command strings are the same. The adapter is the same. Runs exactly the same. Everything is exactly the same. No difference. And again, I think that this last one is not necessary. Only one that's different is instead of selecting from a view, I'm selecting from a from a string, notice that I grabbed S1 first because this is the first player. So this is the one this is the selection from the first player. So I just said S1 to keep it a little shorter. And I pass that into the string. So that's the text from the first player. So I want all the possible opponents taking the text from the first player.
You show us the first player, second player.
I don't think it does get shorter and shorter. I think it depends on which one I'm taking. So we create a new game. If I have the game Blitzen, I'm going to have all of them in there. So if I have a game between Blitzen and Vixen, when I create the game, it was successfully created. Now, when I go to Blitzen, now there's a little problem here with refreshing the list. That I should not see Vixen in this list.
Yeah, I remember last time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, if I keep creating games, he's going to keep getting shorter and shorter because I won't have as many. Once I have a game, they don't show up in the list anymore. So
But it's not in the code yet, right? Go ahead.
dancer
I was gonna
and
say, wouldn't in reality you already know player one because you just inserted him as the user?
well, you would, but I'm putting a right. I'm just using the combo boxes, and I don't know that when I'm creating a game, I don't know that I have just inserted that guy. I might have inserted them all. I inserted all the Santa's reindeer this afternoon. So when I drop down that first menu box, that's the one. That's all the people I could choose. Once I choose one of them, then I have a subset of everybody in the. So I'm always going to get every possible player.
I guess I was trying to look at it as a user would look at it.
Okay.
And
There's other ways to look at it. I'm giving you a way that I think works, and then you can make your own decisions from here.
No player ID. Player ID.
Well, you're going to use numbers instead of names. I mean, I don't see what the difference is.
Oh, okay, you okay? Because it's not user friendly.
Well,
002.
I don't think I would go back and change. All I'm going to do is say I told you so. I wouldn't go back and change it now. I just use numbers. I do like combo boxes on this one, on the create game. I think combo boxes are an important thing to look at and get running. So if we get 2 pairs of them running, then on the next one, I'm going to have 2 combo boxes and radio buttons. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. That's our radio button group, RBG, as it's frequently called. Okay, so let's look at play around. Play around, I have a combo box that works exactly the same way. Could have just copied them and changed the names, and they're exactly the same as they were on the other one in the create game. Exactly. Then up above them here, I have a radio button group. Notice the little box around that. Okay, you create I should have saved that other one. Yeah, how do you create it? Okay. Yeah, view, Well, let me go ahead and show it once. Toolbox. The first thing you do is you go to the toolbox and you get a, what is it? Not a text box. Is it a group? Yeah, a group box. A group box. And then there's another one. You can also get a panel. Will do the same thing. LMNO. A panel will do the same. I'm not sure what the difference is. I used a group box. So you go get a group box and you put the group box on your page. There it is. And then you go to your radio buttons, and the radio buttons that are in that group are a part of that group box. So if you put 5 radio buttons in there, they will have mutually exclusive. Okay. This is not the same in every programming language. Visual programming languages will differ here. Most of the time you put something kind of a group. You have a radio button group, which is kind of what we did here. And then you add radio buttons to that radio button group. And in the radio button group, you set the default radio button. You know, what is it before it's selected? It has to be something. In many worlds it does. I'm not sure how that works in Visual Basic. The radio buttons in Visual Basic are a little more rudimentary. I can talk about how they change. Right now I'm going to get rid of this. I have a couple of labels underneath my, they call it Echo 1 and Echo 2. And this is just this is for troubleshooting. Right, I just stuck these under here. So I can see what's happening. So all that is, it's gonna, when I select something, it's gonna show me the value I'm going to insert. I'll show you how we do that. These guys, these combo boxes work exactly the same way. Just copies. Nothing to it. Copy and paste. And the programming these things isn't all that difficult. You only have to really write one, and then all the rest of them are kind of, well, you write one. Well, there's two different ones. There's one that does the combo boxes and one that does the inserting. Okay. And let's take a look at this. Let's see, executing the game. First, we'll look at the load on load. Push him over, and we don't need this anymore. Form load, exactly the same, exactly the same. It doesn't change any. You have the connection string. There's our SQL string. Selected from the views, exactly the same, nothing different, nothing different. Nothing different in the other one. When the first player is changed, the other one changes. This one, except this one's a little bit different. It selects the PID from a different function. One of them was named what? Possible opponents. This one is labeled active opponents. This is everybody that's in the games table who is not in the possible opponents. Yeah, there's that. No, you need this. There's two functions. One of them is possible opponents and active opponents. So they could be your opponent, and these are. So this one, a game has been established. So in order to get into that second combo box, they have to have a game with the person in the first combo box. Oh well, just another function. And everything else is exactly the same, exactly the same, exactly the same. I'll take that comment out as soon as I make sure that it doesn't really destroy anything. I hate to get to the end and find I've broken it. Okay. Now, basically, the only difference is this word right here: active opponents and possible opponents. Slightly different logic in the SQL that created the game. Possible opponents, excuse me. Possible opponents, right? Well, he's not me, and he's not in this set of not possible opponents. Well, who's going to be this is going to be the people with whom we could have a game. Here's the next one. Oh, up here. This. Right. Well, what's this? This is that. So basically, the possible opponents are, well, he's not me, and he's not in this. Okay. So what is the active opponents? This. Can't be me because I've already that's already been blocked. Get your head straight. I didn't know it was crooked. I'll tell you what we can do. I'm going to pause the recording and resuming recording after our break. So I think we've established that the active opponents are the complement of the possible opponents. Would you agree with that? So the active opponents are everybody that's not in the other one besides me. So it's not me, and they're not in the other one. So, okay, look carefully, please. This is the one that gives me all of the people I'm currently in a game with. Are you all right with that? Well, I don't know how to, this is, okay. This gives me all of the people who are player one, and I'm in a game with them as player two. So this will give me all of the people that are player one where I'm player two. Union. This gives me all of the people who are player two where I'm player one. Will you agree with me that gives me all of the people I'm in a game with? Okay. So the possible opponents,
Makes your head hurt.
possible opponents are people that are not there. Okay. Well, we're gonna move. We'll move on.
Get the logic. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
The possible opponent plus the active opponent add together is the total list of players.
Yes, except for me. I'm not in that. I'm not in either one.
Yeah, except.
Okay.
So using this operator.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, where were I? And have I turned on my recording? I have. Okay. From active. So it's the only difference. The only difference in these guys is that one line right there, but one word, active versus possible. That's the only difference. The other one, other than that, they're just copy. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these. These are player ones. These are the check changed. Okay. When the checkbox is changed, or when the radio button is changed. Now, most of the time, the event that triggers the radio button group is on the group. It's not on. It's a property of that container object, that panel or that group. Okay, so that has properties too. And most of the time, when the radio button group is changed, it detects it in one place. We're not so lucky here in Visual Basic. We have to detect each button changed. So if I change one button, if I click a different button, then two buttons have changed. The one I clicked and the one that got unclicked, right?
Is
So-
that one step in Visual Basic?
Nah, well, no. But it's, I mean, they're so much the same that let's look at one of them. RB P1 radio button player 1 underscore rock. I'm gonna sneeze. Radio button player 1 rock checked changed. If radio button P1 rock dot checked is equal to true, that means that okay, then P1. Oh, by the way, P1 is a variable. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to run up here and get it. Look, here's the couple of form variables. Now, those are just variables. They're just characters. They go away when we leave the class. They're not on the form. They're class variables. They don't exist on the form. They exist in the class. So it's just a variable, like you'd find in a C function or anything.
So it's important that they're outside of the subroutine?
They could be inside the subroutine, but if they were inside the subroutine, then when the subroutine ended, they'd go away. So they're global to the subroutine, but they're within the form. They're within the class. So a class variable is what they really are. P1, P2. So those are the, and so what do I do? Is, well, something changed, and P1 is checked. In that case, that choice has to be R. I mean, and rock, P1 rock is checked, then R rock. Now, here's my little troubleshooting. Label 1, right. I left his name as label1.txt, gets P1. I just want to be able to see him because I can't see him. Okay, so that's just showing me what he is on the form. Not only do I see it up there, but I see it when it happens down below, and that's what's getting sent to the procedure. And basically, I got 6 of them. Well, paper's checked, then P1 gets P. If scissors is checked, then it's S. Something changed. Whichever one that got checked is going to send its value to that variable. Make sense? Donnie, you okay? Same thing. I do the same thing for all 3 for player 2. Button execute. Go back and look at the button from create player. Button execute is just about exactly the same thing. Notice I even copied the comments.
Where did the, I'm sorry, can we back up just a second?
Yeah.
Where did the group box come in? I'm having a little difficulty with that.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause if you,
Have you programmed in a different language?
not really,
Okay.
nobody.
Some of the languages, the group box is much more important than it is here. All the group box does is if that radio button is inside of that group box, then it is a radio button group. If you move it outside of the group box, it's just a radio button sitting there.
I guess this may be the wrong way to ask it, but does that make it toggle? So if I collect this
Yes.
one, it'll uncheck the other 2? Okay,
Yes.
That's why we put it in the group
The
box.
fact that it's in the group box makes it singly exclusive, singly, plurally
You only
exclusive.
have one option.
Only one.
And-
Choose one.
And checking a different option will unselect.
Uncheck that one, regardless of how many are in that
I thought
box.
that'd be something else here, but I get it now. I
Mhm.
get it.
When the group box is not a physical delimiter like it is here, then it gets really weird because the radio buttons don't have to be in any physical spot. And so you can have a radio button group that has enter, leave. I had a student do that to me once. He put the radio button, a radio button, and they were in alternating groups. Well, you couldn't do that in Visual Basic. But in some languages you can, because the radio button group is a logical idea. And it doesn't have anything to do with their physical position. In Visual Basic, it has to do with their physical position. And whether the button has changed or not is a property of the button. In the other languages, whether the button has changed or not is a property of the group. So the group has stronger properties in other languages. It's just one of those things you just got to get over. Well, when somebody clicks a button, something changes. So checked changed. I don't know. I don't ever pay a whole lot of attention to that. Obviously, Donna saw that error a couple of weeks ago, or wasn't it last week, where I copied something and had forgotten to change that. I don't pay much attention to this stuff out here yet. Maybe I'll have to someday. Right now, I don't. I'm more interested in, what is it? When does it happen? So the check changed. When it changes, then something changes. So if I've changed the radio button, I have changed at least one of them to true. It's going to fire on two of them, because out of three, two of them will have to change. One of them won't do anything because it's not true. Only the one true will do it. And similarly, this one. Okay. Button execute is exactly the same as the insert player. Exactly the same connect string. Exactly the same. Well, the SQL is slightly different because it is a different procedure. But everything else is exactly the same. It's telling me the exact same thing, that it can be simplified. If you want to look at it, go ahead. It's a stored procedure. We set up the parameters the same way. This one has 4 parameters instead of 3. Do it exactly the same way. We set up our error level exactly the same way. We execute non-query. So this could practically be, you make a copy of the insert player button, and you've got this if all you do is change a couple of words in it. Now, I had a little issue. My problem was that my players, and you're going to have this issue too, so think about it. When you insert a round, when you insert a game, your players are kept in what we call big endian, right? Big end in ascending order. Correct? Yeah, we always assert that player 1 is less than player 2. So when I create a game, I don't have to worry about it because I have this code in here that, wherever it was, create triggers, procedures. When I insert the game, there's big endian. You run into that term comes from TCP/IP, and there's what they call the byte order. Many machines at the hardware level, the bytes are in 8 bits make a byte. Then you have your low 4 and your high 4. Sometimes they're switched. Big endian. And so, as you're going from left to right, this is the high side of it. So this is the, 2 to the 8th power, to the 7th power is my little finger. Well, that's big endian. and also Little Indian. So some of them are one way and some of them are the other way. And the network is expecting them one way. But you don't know how they're going. Networks are different and machines are different, so they have to have a way of figuring out what we've got. So Big Indian is one way, so I have to look at it and tell what it is. Anyway, ours is always kept in Big Indian. So the larger one is always on the back. Is always player 2. If not, swap them. Now, so let's play around. And who do I have here? I have Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is wanting to play around with Dancer, which is appropriate, I suppose. I think I've told you guys the story about the time I was trying to write the candidates election and I spelled it erection on a test at University of Texas, and I had about 30 of them. No, I had the whole class Xerox, so I wasn't about to go throw them all away. And it was right during Bill Clinton's famous dalliance. And then to top it all off, one of the professors was writing a book, got wind of it, and I got coded into her book on Pascal, Modula 2, whatever it was at the time. It was on discussing syntax versus semantics. Okay, let's talk about Donald Trump and Dancer. Which one comes first? Who is player 1 and who is player 2, in other words? Well, who is player 1 and player 2 in the form? In the form, they're reversed.
We should really enforce the user to
Okay.
conform to our
Agreed. Agreed.
constraint.
Sure.
We take care
But I had to take care of that. My insert round or my play round or whatever it was not dealing with that. So they were getting inserted into the rounds table in reverse order. And I realized I was, running a whole bunch of them in a script, and I realized, wait a minute. Something's wrong here because the numbers aren't coming out right. So I sat down and put in these two, or something like it anyway, Al and Bob and Al, and I looked at what got put into the table, and when they were reversed, it put them into the table reversed. You got to deal with that. Now, the way I dealt with it was I took a fairly simple approach. Insert round. Basically, I just switched them. Right? If player 1's bigger than player 2, I switch the players and the tokens. Takes 6 commands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Don't we do something similar when we're registering players in a game?
Mhm.
I mean, we don't make them.
You just don't have to swap the tokens. Right. You can't swap the player without changing the tokens also. So it's a 3 commands to swap a player. You have to create a temporary, move A to the temporary, B to A, temporary to B, or something like that. There's other sequences, but well, I could have done it differently. I believe you had something you did a little differently on it. There's different ways of handling it. Many of your programming languages will not let you change your your parameters. Many programming languages will not let you change an input parameter. In that case, if you have to do something like this, swap them, you have to pull them out into local variables and swap those variables. Most of the time, changing an input parameter is wrong, but not in this case. It makes no sense to change an input parameter, except here. Okay, what?
So, you have a speed for the speed for the
Sure.
So which code is a control for speed belong to the player one?
Here.
In the code label,
Talking about down here in these guys.
6, yeah.
Okay, player one. There are how many radio buttons do I have for player one? How many? 1, 2, 3. Rock, paper, scissors. How many for player two? 1, 2, 3. So when somebody changes it, that means 2 of them are going to get changed. So this is going to fire. This is going to fire 2 events. This one, if I change it to, if I was paper and change it to rock, this one's going to fire. True. So if it's true, then we do this, and the P1 gets set to R. That's what's going to get put into the database. This one, well, it's false, so nothing happens. The event's still fired. Pretty simple. Okay, one more, and we're just about done. It's Halloween, guys. You want to go trick or treating, right? Donna, you going trick or treating? You're not going trick or treating? Neither do I. I'm gonna dress up as a bunny rabbit someday and go trick or treating. We never were allowed to go trick or treating because too many. Well, I got in enough trouble without it. Let's look at one more. What is this? I don't know what that is. Somehow I've closed that view. Solution Explorer is what I want. Okay,
You show us these 4. Are there 4 in the one file?
what?
You show us these 4 code today. So are those 4
They're in one project.
one project, separate?
Well, they're separate forms. Yes, they are separate files. At the beginning, I talked about how you create the project and how you add them to it. I suggest you start with 4 empty ones and get them running in pieces. Then you'll come along and add this one last, the master form. How do you pin this thing? Doc. Whoop, didn't want to do that. Go away. Goodness, I always keep messing this screen up. I gotta have a good way of putting it back. Okay, and insert new player. Basically, this is the form that just runs everything. This is where you can be as wild as you want to. By the way, you can make tabbed forms, so you can you don't have to have 4 forms. You can build 3 forms that kind of are tabbed, cascading tabs. You're on your own. Go figure out how to do it.
You mentioned at the beginning showing us the logic behind a back button or something.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to show you the logic behind all the buttons. It's all the same. It's all the same. There it is right there. There's the form master, the button insert player. Form button insert player show. Me.close. Me means the one I'm in now. So open the form insert player, close yourself. What about this one? Create game, show, me, close. Form play round, show, me, close. Quit, me, close. Pretty much a piece of cake. And as you would, the back button, form master, show, me, close. It is that simple. If you do the me close first, they both close because you're closing it before you get to the show method. So you got to show the other one first and then close yourself. If you close yourself first, then you're not alive to show. Okay. Oh, one little more minor point. Okay. Tools.
I don't remember if you executed your round.
Sure.
Well,
But I'd be embarrassed if it doesn't.
Output box.
Call them out, right?
No.
Let's see. Where's my start?
Sorry, the mess.
He's the grader,
Where?
so you never do something like that.
Yeah, I know, but I've lost my start button. Debug. Oh, I'm still debugging. Okay, start.
Oh, that's why your solution.
Okay. Insert new player works just fine. Bob. X. Okay. And if I try to insert Bob again, it'll throw an error. Well, it'll give me an error there. Okay. Back. Create new game. Then I had Donald and somebody. And so it's been created back. And now play round. So I choose any one that I want. Let's choose Cupid. And I think the only one I've got is Comet. If I chose a different one, I think Donald has quite a few opponents. So Donald has 3. Donald and Dancer.
So before you choose a button there,
Yeah. Can you execute that? And show us
Yeah.
what happens?
see what-
With nothing
I
selected?
don't know what's going to happen if nothing is selected. I won't get through the procedure. I know that. If I execute, I insert failed because token 1 is invalid. And the reason it's token 1 is because Dancer and Donald were swapped in that. So it's coming back and says token 1. So maybe that's something I want to fix. I'll put that on my someday burner. Well, you'll find that you can obsess over these things, and you'll have to if you're putting it out for public consumption. It is just incredibly difficult to build a bulletproof form, because to build a moron-proof form, because morons are so resourceful. Notice that this one has one selected over here in player 1. It has a value selected. I suspect that's just because that's the first radio button I put on there. I don't know. I don't know why that one is selected. And I don't see a way to choose one for player 2 to be selected.
When you load that form, couldn't you
You could.
reset all of that? So that-
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. There's a number of things you could do. I just haven't done it yet. As soon as I select one, as I select paper, notice it comes down here and shows it to me. That's all that does, is show me the value that I'm about to put into the database. So when I execute the game, now we see.
So you are figuring out who's winning.
Well,
on the fly. You're not. Are you going back to the database?
No.
for that? No. Okay.
No, because that's not in the database. But that's fairly easy.
And you don't record that in the database because that's a calculation.
I could. Here's the code.
Okay.
It's just the if logic that you wrote. Just using the form variables. I have them in there, so I have P1 and P2 in the form. So I don't need to go to the database. The database has already happened. So the database happened right here, and I'm done with the database.
So the only thing that's in the rounds table is the 2-player IDs.
No, not the 2-player IDs. They're not in the rounds table. The game IDs, the 2 tokens. The players are in the games table, and then the game ID links them to the game. But I could tell you at any point. So I could run a query. You could write a, might be good to do. You could tell me what the players' scores are, respectively. So, you know, how many times has player one in this game been the winner? Here.
Yeah, and so which
Basic.
which is string you should call.
Yeah, basically I say, was the error level 0? Because I don't want to declare a winner if the error level came back a 1, 2, or 3. There's no game. So was the error level 0? Then if they're equal, then it's a tie. Else, check every way that player 1 could be the winner. Player 1. By the CHR 10, CHR 13, carriage return line feed. That's how you put that into a string. If you need to break the string, right, then this label, so label game gets this. You put one space, underscore, and that has to be the last character. You can't have a comment after it. One space and an underscore. The first character on this line has to be an ampersand, and then you just keep on typing. You can use a plus. Plus and an ampersand work together. I guess I just use an ampersand there. I don't know why. If I put a plus there, it'd work just fine.
Yeah, it is good way, and it is another way. And since this function we already written in the database function or view, can we just use
Sure.
in the okay. So,
Don't go to the database.
now the kicking rate, because the result we already have the function to automatically decide. Right?
Yes, but you have a function in the database. It is not as good to do it in the database because you're going to do exactly the same thing, but why go across the internet and bother the database? The database is watching Judge Judy on its TCP/IP connection. You don't want to interrupt it. It's better to do it. I'm about to wrap up here. As I say, I'm about to wrap up here. It is Halloween. Okay. What I'm about to do is move to a time where we're going to be working more on this, and I'll be working with your individual concerns and needs rather than lecturing, because I've about lectured this one to death. So I'll be working individually.
Could you go over active? No.
Active what?
No, I'm joking. It's a trick. Trick and treat.
Active Directory.
No, the active player. I was joking.
Oh.
I was joking.
Well, basically that's just one that I mean, you've got it on the tape, so you can see the code and you just write it down. Yeah. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it besides a union. I just think of a union in that. Okay, I'm about to pause the recording here. So the